I would imagine that all of us here, for example, have got at least one person that we've lost contact with over the last 12 months. And where it wouldn't actually be that complicated to get them back. And we don't experience a loss about it at all. And I suppose what I'm trying to edge towards with this is that actually the whole process of loss is one which occurs not just continuously, but I hate to say this, is one that occurs largely unconsciously. So the whole process of living is actually about a continuous process of loss. Many of those losses we could get back again. In fact, it would be very easy to ring up certain people tomorrow. It's also worth saying that a number of these particular losses we couldn't get back again. And that's interesting as well, because even if we can't get them back again, we don't necessarily grieve about them. You know, I'm sure that there's nobody here today who's sitting here grieving about the fact that they haven't got the same food in their fridge now that they had 6 months ago. It's a loss. There's no two ways about it. It's a loss, and it's a loss which we can't get back, but it's not one that inevitably causes us to grieve. So what I just really wanted to emphasize with this is that very often we tend to assume that loss experiences are discrete events that we are extremely conscious of. And the reality is not the case. The vast majority of losses that we actually experience, we are not conscious of at all, and we do not have grief reactions about. In other words, there is no inevitable connection between experiencing a loss and grieving. Which I know raises the interesting question then of why would we grieve? And you might say, well, I might grieve if the personal thing that I've lost is very important to me. Possibly, it's going to increase the chances, but again, it's not inevitable. I moved house a couple of years ago, and basically I've lost that place that I used to live in. I don't have any sense of grief whatsoever about it, and I don't think I've ever been conscious of having any grief whatsoever about that. So and yet that particular place that I lived in was very important to me. It was quite central to my life. So there's an interesting question about why it is that we do actually end up experiencing grief in particular instances, because it is in no way inevitably attached to loss. And we'll come back to what sort of factors make a difference in a moment. And what's called genuine causal guilt is one of the most difficult areas to work with when you are working with major loss situations, because it represents, I think, the most difficult existential question. There's one of the big problems about the whole loss field is it raises existential questions all the time. But the biggest existential question here is I have caused a major loss to occur, which if I had chosen not to do something which I could have reasonably known not to do, it wouldn't have happened. This is quite different, can I emphasize, from people who experience guilt following a loss and who are saying to themselves, if only I had done, which is very common indeed. We're talking here about whether it's genuine causal loss and how individuals deal with that. But if we're talking about a loss which is not inevitable, and which I would wish to prevent, and where I could have made decisions otherwise, it creates some additional complexities.